Humans were never meant to go to the gym, at least not in the way we think about it today. Our bodies did not evolve for treadmills, weight machines, or hour-long workout sessions squeezed between meetings. They evolved for something very different. And that matters because many people today feel like they are constantly failing at exercise. They start routines with good intentions, struggle to stay consistent, feel guilty when motivation fades, and assume something must be wrong with them. But what if the problem is not you? What if the problem is a mismatch between the kind of movement your body evolved to expect and the artificial environment we have built around it? Here's the real question. If exercise is supposed to be good for us, why does our brain resist it so strongly? Why does sitting feel effortless, while planned workouts can feel like a battle of willpower? From an evolutionary perspective, that resistance is not a flaw. It is a clue. When we look at this through the lens of evolutionary biology and anthropology, a very different story emerges. One that has nothing to do with laziness and everything to do with survival. For most of human history, physical activity was not something you chose to do for health. It was something you did to get food, find water, build shelter, or stay safe. Movement had a purpose. Rest, on the other hand, was precious. Energy was limited, and wasting it could be dangerous. That evolutionary legacy is still written into our physiology today. Our muscles, metabolism, and even our motivational systems were shaped in a world where unnecessary exertion could be costly. So when modern fitness culture tells you that you should want to exercise for its own sake, it is asking your brain to operate in a way it was never designed to. I'm Daniel Lieberman, Harvard professor and evolutionary biologist. I've spent my career studying how the human body evolved to run, eat, and survive. Now, I'm here to help you understand why your Stone Age body struggles in a modern world, and exactly how to fix it. Welcome to the evolution. In this video, I want to explore what humans actually evolved for, why the modern gym is such a strange environment from a biological perspective, and how understanding this mismatch can change the way you think about movement, not as a test of discipline, but as a conversation with your evolutionary past. To understand why the gym feels unnatural to so many people, we need to step back and look at the kind of lives humans actually evolved to live. For more than 2 million years, our ancestors survived as hunter-gatherers. They walked long distances to find food and water. They carried children, tools, and gathered plants. They dug for tubers, climbed over uneven terrain, and occasionally sprinted or threw when hunting or escaping danger. Their days were active, but not in the structured, repetitive way we think of as exercise today. Anthropologists who study contemporary hunter-gatherer groups find that people are physically active for several hours a day, but most of that activity is low to moderate in intensity. It is walking, carrying, squatting, lifting natural objects, and using the upper body in varied ways. There is also a lot of rest. People sit, talk, repair tools, prepare food, and sleep when it is dark. Activity is woven into life, not separated from it. This pattern reflects a fundamental principle of evolutionary biology: energy conservation. For most of human history, calories were not guaranteed. Finding food required effort, and going too long without it could be deadly. Under those conditions, natural selection favored bodies and brains that avoided wasting energy on unnecessary exertion. That is why we have strong biological instincts to sit down when we can, to take the easier path, and to avoid pointless physical effort. These tendencies are not signs of weakness or poor character. They are ancient survival strategies. If you feel resistance to going to the gym after a long day, that response actually makes evolutionary sense. Our physiology also reflects this history. Humans evolved to be endurance specialists, not power machines. Compared to most mammals, we are unusually good at walking and running long distances at steady, moderate speeds. We have spring-like tendons, large gluteal muscles, and an ability to sweat that helps us cool down during prolonged activity. But these adaptations evolved in the context of movement with purpose, not repetitive workouts in climate-controlled rooms. Another important detail is variability. Ancestral movement was constantly changing. One day might involve a long walk. Another might include more climbing or digging. Some days were relatively easy, others more demanding. The body was exposed to a wide range of loads, angles, and surfaces. That variety helped maintain strength, mobility, and resilience, without isolating individual muscle groups or tracking repetitions. Now compare that to the modern gym. Many workouts are highly repetitive, focused on specific muscles, and performed on machines that guide movement along fixed paths. From an evolutionary perspective, that is a very strange stimulus. It is not that these movements are inherently bad, but they are disconnected from the kinds of tasks our bodies evolved to perform. There is also the issue of timing. Our ancestors did not wake up early to do a workout before sitting still for the rest of the day. Their movement was spread throughout the day in small and large bouts. In contrast, many people today try to compress all their physical activity into a single session, then spend most of their remaining hours sitting in chairs, cars, or on couches. So when exercise feels like an unnatural chore, it is worth remembering that your body is not confused. It is responding exactly as a body shaped by millions of years of evolution would respond to optional, purposeless exertion. Understanding that history is the first step toward building a healthier relationship with movement in the modern world. This brings us to the modern mismatch. The environment our bodies evolved in and the one we live in now are profoundly different, especially when it comes to movement. For our ancestors, physical activity was built into the fabric of daily survival. Food did not arrive with a click. Water was not piped into shelters. Tools were not delivered to the doorstep. To meet basic needs, people had to move. Not because they wanted to burn calories, but because movement was inseparable from living. Today, in many parts of the world, we have engineered movement out of our lives. We sit to work, sit to commute, sit to relax, and often sit to socialize. From a biological perspective, this level of prolonged inactivity is unprecedented. Our bodies evolved in an environment where long periods of total stillness were rare outside of sleep or brief rest. This is the core of mismatch theory. Evolution shaped our physiology for one set of conditions, and we are now placing it in another. When those conditions diverge too far, problems can arise. In the case of physical activity, our bodies still expect regular, varied movement spread across the day. Instead, we give them long stretches of sitting, punctuated by occasional bursts of intense, structured exercise. It is not surprising that this feels difficult to sustain. The gym asks us to perform effort that is optional, abstract, and often disconnected from immediate rewards. In ancestral environments, movement had clear outcomes. You walked and found food. You carried wood and made a fire. You dug and found something edible. The brain evolved to respond strongly to effort that solved real problems. Modern workouts, by contrast, are based on delayed benefits. You exercise today to reduce the risk of disease years from now. That is a powerful reason intellectually, but it is not the kind of immediate feedback system our motivational circuits were designed around. So when you struggle to feel motivated, it does not mean you lack discipline. It means your ancient brain is weighing costs and benefits using rules that made sense in the past. There is another layer to this mismatch. Many people approach the gym with an all-or-nothing mindset. If they cannot do a full workout, they do nothing. But ancestral movement was rarely all or nothing. It was accumulated in small bouts. A short walk here, some lifting there, a brief climb, a few minutes of digging or carrying. Over the course of a day, it added up. Our physiology still responds well to that pattern. Muscles, bones, and metabolic systems benefit from frequent signals to move, even if those signals are modest. From an evolutionary perspective, consistency matters more than intensity. Regular, low to moderate activity aligns more closely with the conditions under which our bodies evolved. So the problem is not that humans are bad at exercise. The problem is that we have defined exercise in a way that is biologically unusual, intense, time-bound, optional, and often socially pressured. When you see it this way, your resistance stops looking like a personal failure and starts looking like a predictable response to a novel environment. That shift in perspective can be surprisingly liberating. It opens the door to thinking less about forcing yourself into a gym routine and more about redesigning your environment so that movement becomes a natural, almost unavoidable part of daily life again. Here is the surprising part. Even though humans evolved to be physically active, we did not evolve to love unnecessary exercise. That might sound counterintuitive. We often hear that humans are born to move, which is true in one sense. Our bodies clearly function best when we are regularly active. But from an evolutionary perspective, there is an important distinction between being capable of movement and being motivated to expend energy without a reason. Natural selection does not favor behaviors that waste energy. It favors behaviors that balance costs and benefits in ways that improve survival and reproduction. For most of human history, vigorous physical activity was useful when it helped secure food, avoid danger, or care for others. Outside of those contexts, conserving energy was usually the safer strategy. This helps explain a common modern experience. You might enjoy certain activities like hiking with friends, playing a sport, or working in a garden. But put the same movements on a treadmill or in a repetitive gym circuit, and suddenly they feel tedious. The physiology is similar, but the context is different. One feels purposeful and socially meaningful. The other can feel abstract and disconnected. Our brains evolved to pay attention to context. Reward systems are more strongly activated when effort is tied to goals that feel immediate, social, or meaningful. That is why people often move more when they have a dog to walk, a job that requires standing, or children to chase. The movement is embedded in life, not isolated as a separate task labeled exercise. Another insight from evolutionary biology is that discomfort during exertion is not a design flaw. Sensations like fatigue, breathlessness, and muscle burn are signals that help regulate effort. They evolved to prevent us from pushing so hard that we risk injury or exhaustion in environments where recovery resources were limited. In the gym, we sometimes interpret these signals as enemies to overcome at all costs, but they are actually part of an ancient feedback system designed to keep us safe. There is also evidence that our bodies are particularly well adapted to moderate, sustained activity rather than constant high intensity. Walking long distances, carrying loads at manageable weights, and alternating effort with rest were common patterns in ancestral life. Extreme, repetitive exertion without variation was less typical. Yet many modern fitness trends emphasize maximal effort, minimal rest, and highly structured repetition. When people cannot sustain those routines, they often blame themselves. But from an evolutionary standpoint, it may be the routine that is unusual, not the person. A body shaped by natural selection to conserve energy and respond to meaningful tasks will not automatically thrive in a system built around abstract goals, mirrors, and machines. The key insight is this: your lack of enthusiasm for the gym is not evidence that you are lazy. It is evidence that your motivational systems were designed for a different world. Once you understand that, you can stop fighting your biology and start working with it. That realization shifts the question from how do I force myself to exercise to how can I shape my environment so that movement feels more natural, more purposeful, and less like a constant battle of willpower. So how do we apply this evolutionary perspective in practical terms? The goal is not to perfectly recreate the past. That is neither possible nor necessary. Instead, the aim is to reduce the mismatch between the body we have and the environment we live in. The first shift is mental. Movement does not have to mean a formal workout. From an evolutionary standpoint, what matters most is not whether you go to the gym, but whether your day contains regular, varied physical activity. Walking to run errands, taking the stairs, carrying groceries, doing housework, gardening, or playing with children all count. These forms of movement are not inferior to exercise. In many ways, they are more aligned with how humans evolved to move. Another helpful reframe is to focus less on intensity and more on frequency. Our ancestors did not usually perform short bursts of extreme effort followed by long periods of sitting. They moved often, at mostly moderate levels. Short walks spread throughout the day, standing up regularly, and doing brief bouts of light activity can send important signals to muscles, bones, and metabolism. Those signals tell the body that it still needs to maintain its systems for movement. It can also help to make movement purposeful whenever possible. Instead of thinking, I have to work out, you might think, I'm going to walk to the store, or I'm going to carry these bags in a few trips instead of one. Giving movement a practical goal taps into motivational circuits that evolve to respond to meaningful tasks. Social context matters as well. Humans evolved as highly social creatures. Many physical activities in ancestral life were done with others, walking together, gathering food, building shelters, sharing tasks. Today, moving with other people, whether through group walks, recreational sports, or active hobbies, often feels easier and more enjoyable than exercising alone. The social element provides cues that make the effort feel worthwhile. Another principle is variety. Our bodies evolved to handle a wide range of movements, not just one repeated pattern. Changing walking routes, spending time on uneven ground, occasionally lifting and carrying objects of different shapes and weights, and using the upper body in daily tasks can provide diverse stimuli that support strength and mobility without needing complex gym routines. Rest also deserves respect. In ancestral environments, rest was not laziness. It was a smart strategy when there was no immediate need to move. The problem today is not that we rest, but that our rest often takes the form of prolonged sitting, combined with very low overall activity. Short breaks of movement throughout the day can preserve the benefits of rest without the downsides of complete inactivity.